The cameras were rolling, but what they captured was never in the script. It started as a high-budget action scene in Morocco. Extras, stunt doubles, choreographed gunfire. Then mid-take, a stuntman's chest exploded in real blood. In seconds, the set became a war zone. The crew became hostages, and the man in the center of it all wasn't just act. The world was about to see Keanu Reeves in a role he never auditioned for. The sun spilled gold over the ancient market of Marrakesh, the air thick with the scent of spices, leather, and hot dust. Hundreds of extras moved through the narrow streets, their chatter blending with the distant to prayer. Keanu Reeves stepped onto the set, his boots crunching against the worn cobblestones. Every step echoing in the still cool morning. To the crew, it was just another shooting day. To Keanu, it felt almost too perfect. He greeted the stunt team with his usual quiet nod, exchanging brief smiles and a few words about the scene ahead. Today's sequence was meant to be high energy, but safe. A choreographed chase through the mud, blanks in the guns, squibs for fake blood, and props that looked dangerous, but weighed nothing. Yet, something was off. At the far end of the set, a group of unfamiliar stuntmen loitered near the prop table. Their movements were sharp, their eyes more than chatting. One of them ran his thumb along the slide of apostol, an odd gesture for a weapon that wasn't supposed to be real. Another adjusted his jacket like concealing weight beneath it. Keanu's Zillingard, but before he could approach, the director's voice cut through the noise. "All right, people, places. We're rolling in too." The crew scattered into position, fear charged with pre-suit adrenaline. Vendors in costume took their spots behind carts, piled high with fake pre-do. Children rehearsed, darting between stalls. The camera cranes were red to life, their metal arms sweeping over the crowd like vultures, circling overhead. Keanu stepped into his mark, feeling the cobblestones warm beneath his boots as the sun climbed higher. Somewhere, in the distance, a pigeon took flight, its wings beating a frantic rhythm that somehow matched the pulse in his neck. He drew a steadying breath. It was just another scene, just another day. But as he gripped the prop pistol, his eyes flicked back to those unfamiliar men. One of them was watching him not as an actor, not as a fan, as prey. Action, the word, cracked through air like a starter pistol, and the marketplace erupted into motion. Keanu sprinted down the winding lane between stalls, dodging hanging fabrics, and weaving past extras, who shouted lines rehearsed 100 times before. The cameras tracked him smoothly, their lenses glinting in the Moroccan sun. Everything felt controlled, and it didn't. A thunderclap tore through the street, louder, deeper than any blank round. The ground shook beneath his boots, a wave of heat licking the back of his neck. Vendors screamed, dropping their a plume of black smoke roared upward from the far end of the set, blotting out the perfect blue sky. Keanu froze mid-step. That wasn't in the script. A stuntman, the same one who had been watching him earlier, staggered sideways and fell. The red blooming across his chest wasn't fake squib blood they used in rehearsals. It pulsed hot and real, pooling fast across the cobblestones. The man's eyes rolled back before he hit ground. The director's voice boomed from somewhere. "Ben, the cameras, keep rolling. Keanu, hit your mark." But Keanu didn't move. His eyes swept the crowd, cutting past chaos, and locked on the men he had noticed earlier. They weren't acting. One of them raised his weapon again, not a prop, not a toy, and the sunlight caught on the polished edge of a live barrel. Keanu's stomach tightened, adrenaline flooding his veins in a sharp, cold rush. A second shot rang out, splintering wood just inches from a cowering extra's head. Screams ripped through the set. People scattered, shoving through stalls and knocking over crates in blind panic. And then Keanu saw it. Heavy trucks at both ends of the street, their engines idling, blocking every exit. The marketplace had become a cage. His prop pistol felt like a joke in his hand now, its hollow weight almost mocking him. The man with the real gun stepped forward, eyes locked on Keanu, not as an actor, not as a co-worker, asterisk, asterisk, as a target. Asterisk, 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 are you still with me? Type 1 asterisk in the comments if you're still watching. The smoke from the blast thickened, curling through the narrow streets and swallowing the market's colors in a choking gray haze. Keanu's ears rang from the shockwave, but through the ringing came a sound more dangerous than any explosion, the deep, synchronized growl of diesel engines. He turned his head at both ends of the market street. Boxy trucks now loomed like fortress walls. Their driver sat expressionless, door shut, engines idling in a steady, menacing rhythm. The exits were gone. The crowd's confusion turned to full-blown panic. Extras tripped over cables. Market vendors in costume abandoned their stalls. Crew members scattered, their radios squawking frantic orders no one could follow. From the haze, the men Keanu had noticed earlier began to advance, no longer pretending to be stunt performers. They moved with the unmistakable precision of professionals trained for violence, their weapons sleek. Matte black rifles were gripped with the confidence of people who had fired them before. A woman in the costume department screamed as one of the gunmen shoved her to the ground, barking something in a language Keanu didn't recognize. Another man snatched a camera operator's walkie-talkie and smashed it against the cobblestones. Keanu's heart hammered not from fear, but from calculation. His eyes flicked from the armed men tough lay out of the market. Too many civilians. Too many blind corners. He couldn't move without drawing fire. And right now, he wasn't the only target. The leader emerged from the smoke hole, broad-shouldered, his face half hidden by a scarf. His eyes locked on Keanu with a cold, proprietary hunger, like he was already claiming him. Move, the man ordered, his voice low, but carrying over the chaos. Keanu didn't. The leader stepped closer, the muzzle of his rifle angling up, not quite pointing, but close. The other gunmen began herding people inward, forcing them into the center. Off street like sheep, driven to a pen. A camera crane, still powered, swung overhead, its mechanical whine eerily out of place. Keanu caught a glimpse of the recording light. They weren't just here to take him. They wanted the world to watch. The trucks sealed the market, the gunmen sealed the people, and the leader's gaze sealed Keanu's fate. The leader's order hung in the smoky air unanswered. Keanu's single quotes as boots stayed planted on Thico Bell stones, his grip tightening around the hollow prop pistol. The weapon was useless, but in his hand, it still gave him a shape, a silhouette they expected from a movie star, not a fighter. A gunman to his left barked something sharp and advanced, shoving a terrified extra aside. That shove was the opening Keanu needed. He stepped into the man's momentum, twisting his wrist hard, ripping the rifle from his grip before the attacker even had time to register surprise. The move was pure muscle, memory, not choreography, not rehearsal. Gasps rippled through the trapped crowd. Somewhere, the camera crane's lens caught the moment, the red record light blinking like an unblinking witness. Keanu didn't fire. Not yet. Instead, he swung the rifle like a bat, smashing its stock into the face of another approaching gunman. The man dropped with a muffled grunt, his weapon clattering across the stones. The leader's voice roared through the haze. Stop him. 3 more surged forward. Keanu's eyes darted around the market. The stalls stacked with crates, the hanging ropes of lanterns, the oil barrels meant for the fire sequence. He moved. A shove toppled a stall, sending a cascade of crates tumbling into the path of the first attacker. His free hand snagged one of the hanging ropes, yanking it down. Lanterns crashed to the ground, their glass shattering. Sparks leaping hungrily toward the spilled oil. A single spark caught in seconds. A curtain of flame roared to life, separating Keanu from half-advancing gunmen. The heat slammed into his face, the crackle of burning wood filling the air. Civilians screamed but ducked away from fire. giving Keanu a pocket of space. He knew it wouldn't last. The men on his side of the flames regrouped, circling like wolves. Keanu adjusted his stance, the rifle now loaded in his hands. The useless prop pistol lying somewhere behind him. His pulse steadied. He was no longer on set. No longer following marks. This was no role, it was survival. The fire's heat pressed against Keanu's back, the air thick with the acrid sting of burning oil. Beyond the flames, Therist of the gunmen shouted orders, their shapes flickering in the wavering light. But on this side, 3 armed men remained, their eyes locked on him with cold intent. The rifle in Keanu's hands was real, heavy, loaded, and warm from its previous owner. But a quick glance chamber told him the truth. 2 rounds left. Nowhere near enough. A fallen attacker groaned nearby, his pistol lying just out of reach. Keanu dropped to one knee, scooped it up, and slid it into his waistband. Insurance. The first gunman lunged from his right, firing wildly. Keanu dove behind a fruit cart, splinter softwood exploding inches from his face. He rolled out, came up on one knee, and fired a single measured shot. The man crumpled, the rifle slipping from limp fingers. The second attacker hesitated long enough for Keanu to seize his moment. He hurled the empty fruit crate into the man's chest, knocking him off balance, then closed the gap. A sharp elbow, tough jaw, a sweep of the leg, and the man hit the stones hard. The third tried to flank him, weaving between the overturned stalls. Keanu felt the shift in the air before saw the movement. A shadow flicker in the wall of flame. He pivoted, squeezing the trigger twice. Both rounds hit center mass for a heartbeat. The world was still, just the roar of fire and the muffled screams of civilians corralled on the other side of the blockade. Then a voice cut through the leaders, dark, amused. "You think you've made it out?" Keanu turned toward the sound. Through the smoke, the leader's silhouette emerged, flanked by 2 more armed men. Their rifles were steady. Their aim was precise. Keanu's rifle clicked dry. He dropped it, his hand slipping to the pistol in his waistband. The flames behind him hissed, collapsing a section of burning stall. The heat was closing in, the exit still sealed. Keanu's jaw tightened. This wasn't a fight he'd been cast in. This was a fight he'd been chosen for. The leader's men advanced, rifles raised, their steps methodical. Keanu backed away slowly, forcing his breathing to stay. Even the pistol in his grip was steady, but he knew a straight firefight in Theopin was suicide. Behind him, a narrow archway yawned the entrance to the prop storage vault. Thick stone walls, one way in, one way out. If he moved fast, he could turn it into a kill box. Keanu slipped through the arch. Just as a burst of rifle fire chewed the cobblestones where he'd been standing. Inside, the air was cooler, heavy with scent of dust, oil, and old wood. Stacked crates towered in uneven rows, some filled with sandbags for others with rusted metal frames and set pieces. Footsteps followed slow. Confident, the first man through the arch swung his rifle into the shadows. But Keanu was already gone, melting between crates. A creak above drew his eyes upward. Thick steel trusses ran the length of the storage room, suspending a massive air rig used to drop heavy set pieces during scene changes. A single cable held the locking mechanism. Perfect. Keanu moved quickly, circling to the far side of the room. The gunmen's voices bounced off the stone, their calls to each other growing tense. A flash of movement. One had spotted him. Bullets slammed into the crates, splintering wood and sending sawdust into the air. He darted left, vaulted over a pile of sandbags, and slid into position beneath rig. With one hand, he fired blind Lido, keep their heads down. With the other, he grabbed a rusted crowbar from the floor and hooked it into the cable release. Now, the cable snapped free. With a metallic rick, the ceiling rig groaned. Then, the world above came crashing down. Metal beams, wooden planks, and hundreds of pounds of stage debris plummeted on Taith gunmen. The impact was deafening. Dust and splinters filled the air, and when it cleared, the room was silent except for the hiss of settling debris. Keanu stepped over the wreckage, checking for movement. None. The prop storage wasn't a vault anymore, it was a grave. Keanu pushed through the storage vault side door and emerged into the open air, lungs burning from dust and smoke. The marketplace behind him was a ruin after pulled, stalls and smoldering flames. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Help was coming but too slowly. Then he saw him, the leader. The man was shoving a wounded and sliding into the driver's seat off a black SUV with armor-plated doors. The vehicle's engine roared to life, belching a cloud of exhaust. It was pointed toward the narrow service road that led out of the market, the only unblocked exit. Keanu's heart rate spiked. He knew that if the leader got away, the operation wouldn't end here. There would be more attacks, more victims. He scanned the ground. No rifle, no long-range shot, just an old, dented metal film canister lying near a toppled camera dolly. It would have to do. The SUV's tires squealed as it began to roll forward. Keanu sprinted, vaulting over debris, his boots pounding the stone. He reached the moving vehicle just as it cleared the alley's shadow, leaped and slammed onto the hood. The driver swerved violently, but Keanu found the edge of the windshield. With a roar, he swung the heavy film canister like a hammer, smashing it into reinforced glass. Cracks spider-webbed instantly. A second blow shattered the corner, sending shards spraying into the leader's single quotes SF ace. The SUV lurched to a stop. Keanu yanked the door open and dragged the man out, slamming him against the side panel. The leader's scarf fell, revealing ice that burned with fury and fear. "You think this ends with me?" the man spat. "No," Keanu growled, tightening his grip. "It ends because of you." A sharp knee to the man's gut folded him over, and Keanu drove him to the ground, pinning him there as the sound of approaching sirens grew louder. He didn't let go until the flashing lights washed over the market. The leader writhed under Keanu's weight, spitting curses in a language half swallowed by his own labored breathing. Around them, the market was a battlefield of overturned stalls, scattered props, and smoking debris. Sirens screamed closer, but Keanu's focus was locked on the man beneath him. Something caught his eye, a camera tripod still standing, miraculously untouched, its lens aimed straight at them. The red record light blinked steadily. It was still broadcasting. Keanu's jaw clenched. This was no longer just about stopping the attack. This was about sending a message to every person watching, and to whoever had sent this man here. He yanked the leader up by his collar and marched him toward the camera. The man thrashed, but Keanu's grip was iron. Blood from the shattered windshield trickled down the man's forehead, smearing across Keanu's knuckles. When they were inches from the lens, Keanu shoved him forward, forcing his fuss into the frame. The man's expression twisted rage, pain, and something deeper, fear. Keanu spoke, his voice low but sharp, every word cutting through the cow's bay in them. This is the man who brought war to a film set, who hid behind costumes and extras, who thought the cameras would make him untouchable. The leader tried to jerk away, but Keanu slammed him back into view, his grip like steel around the back of his neck. "Look at him," Keanu snarled, eyes locking on the lens. "Remember his face, and remember, no one is untouchable." The man spat. Again, Keanu answered with a single brutal punch to the gut, doubling him over. Gasps erupted from the surviving crew nearby. Keanu lifted his head toward the camera one last time. "This is what happens when you come for more for mine." Blue and red lights flooded the scenius. Moroccan police swarmed in, rifles raised. Keanu released the leader into their custody. The man collapsed to his knees, coughing and gasping for air. The camera kept rolling. Millions would see this moment, wanted them to. Blue and red strobes pulsed against the smoke-filled ruins of the marketplaces. Moroccan police moved in like a tied-off black uniforms. Commands barked in rapid Arabic cut through the ringing in Keanu's ears. He stepped back, chest heaving, as two officers wrenched the leader's arms behind his back and locked the cuffs in place. The man still tried to spit curses, but his voice had lost its weight. The camera was still recording, still broadcasting the raw, unedited aftermath. Every lens in the market seemed to turn toward Keanu, but he ignored them. His eyes stayed on the other armed men, some pinned beneath the collapsed prig. Others dragged out from hiding spots. The advancing officers. A senior officer approached, his uniform crisp, despite the chaos. "They're all alive?" Keanu asked, his voice low. "Not all," the officer replied bluntly. "Two dead from the collapse. The rest, ... They single quotes LL stand trial here and abroad." One by one, the attackers were lined up against the wall of a surviving building. Their weapons were piled in the center of the square rifles, pistols, knives, a heap of steel and polymer that looked cadabson in the soft morning light, no filtering through the smoke. Keanu caught the leader's gaze as he washed into the back of a police van. No more arrogance. No more cold certainty. Just a man who knew the rest of his life well be spent in a cage. The senior officer spoke again, almost as if for the benefit of the cameras. "The leader will be extradited to Europe. Charges include terrorism, attempted kidnapping, and multiple counts of murder. Minimum, life without parole." Keanu said nothing, but a slow, controlled breath left his chest. The other gunmen faced their own sentences, decades in Moroccan prisons, some facing death for their crimes. Their fate was sealed in ink and law, not in the chaos of the fight. As the last police van rolled away, the market fell eerily quiet. Crew members emerged from cover, shaken, bruised, but alive. Some clung to each other. Others just stared at Keanu, unsure whether to thank him or fear what they'd seen him do. He looked around at the wreckage, at the burned stalls, the broken cameras, the dirt stains on the cobblestones. This wasn't a set anymore. It was a scar. A young sound technician approached, holding the still recording camera. "It's all here," she said softly. "Every second." Keanu nodded once. "Keep it. Don't cut a frame." He turned toward the narrow alley that would take him back to his trailer. The sirens had faded, but his pulse hadn't. This wasn't the end, because somewhere, someone had sent these men, and Keanu Reeves intended to find them. When the smoke finally cleared, and the sirens faded into the distance, the marketplace of Marrakesh was no longer a film set. It was a memory carved into stone. The stalls could be rebuilt, the props could be replaced, but the people who walked away from that day would carry the imprint of it forever. Keanu Reeves, a man known for scripts and roles, had been thrust into a part he never chose, a role without rehearsals, without retakes, where every decision cost lives. And yet, he acted with courage, clarity, and a quiet sense of duty. Not because cameras were rolling, not because anyone told him to, but because it was the right thing to do. That's the truth of real heroism. It doesn't wait for applause. It happens in moments when no one would blame you for running. When fear has every reason to take through a land, you stand your ground anyway. We live in a world where danger doesn't always announce itself. It might walk into our lives, disguise it as something harmless, a normal day, a familiar routine, a safe space. And when it does, we have a choice. Do we freeze? Do we look away? Or do we act even if no one is watching? Keanu's actions that day remind us that bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid, knowing the risks, and stepping forward anyway. It's about protecting not just yourself, but everyone who can't protect themselves in that moment. But there's another lesson here, one that goes beyond courage. Preparation matters. Awareness matters. Asterisk asterisk the ability to read a room, to notice what doesn't fit. To trust that uneasy feeling in your gut can be the difference between survival and disaster. You don't need to be a Hollywood actor or a trained fighter to be ready. You just need to be present, to stay aware, and to care enough to act when it matters. So as you leave this story behind, ask yourself, asterisk, if danger walked into your day tomorrow, would you be ready? Asterisk asterisk would you step forward when it counts? Asterisk I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's one moment in your life when y'all went to act without warning? Drop it in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else to find their own courage. And if this story made you think, Medeo feel, or just kept you on the edge of your seat, hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. Because the next time the cameras roll, what happens might be more real than Yan expects. Your voice matters here. Let's keep this conversation going.